People who have been to prison. What are some common misconceptions people have about prison? Not me. My uncle. He says that the food isn't as bad as everyone thinks. It varies extremely widely from prison to prison. My uncle went to prison for selling drugs. I visited the place and all the prisoners are so nice. And they have a basketball court and they even throw a party for one of the prisoner who had a birthday. No touching. I'm catcher or I'm nothing. I've had many childhood friends go to prison. They all say it's more boring than anything. All the crazy stuff happens in the blocks, where they keep dangerous prisoners. They were all supposedly well behaved, and told to act up, and be crazy, if cameras or kids came through. In some Australians' prisons they live in like cabins, and can even order pizza. It's the rehabilitation versus retribution theory. Treat them like people and they will act like people. Treat them like animals, and they will act like animals. My uncle said that rape isn't too common. Just don't hang around the wrong crowd, and your sphincter should be still intact by the time you get out. I was very briefly incarcerated as a minor at 17. They almost sent me to the regular adult jail before pointing out my birthday to the judge. I was resting on the cot they gave me, on the floor of the teenage jail, when I was approached by another young gentleman. He asked very politely if I wanted to get in on a threesome in their cell upstairs. I was flattered, but declined. He said alright, and walked away. The scariest thing in there is a needing to point out your age to the judge that close to, and maybe even after, sentencing. I haven't been, but I visited my half-brother in jail. A lot of people think cops are not nice people, or don't care, and prison is full of hopeless criminals with no chance to turn around. For one, the staff were lovely, and could tell I was super nervous. Not only was I young, and never been to a prison before, but it was my first time meeting my brother, as my dad pretended I didn't exist for the first part of their lives, and when they did find out he told them I died. I had found them on Facebook, and when my dad admitted his lies to my one half brother, he told the one in jail, and he sent me a visitation invite. All the staff at the check-in were so nice, and the guard who took care of the unit my brother was in cared on a personal level about each inmate and genuinely wanted to turn them around in life. He was super happy to meet me, almost as excited as my brother, and said how happy my brother was. He told me he was proud of my brother and thought meeting me could really turn his life around. Because of my age 15 at the time and the circumstances of our meeting, the guard had to be in the room, and they got the prison's vicar to sit with us too. Both were so lovely. The other thing too my brother told me, and the guard and vicar backed up, was that they used to have a small church service and a bunch of inmates would sing for relatives that were allowed to see them sing from time to time. Well, a bad inmate and his gang made sure they were in good behavior with the plans to attack the visitors. This all went down, and my brother along with 8 other inmates formed a human chain around the visitors, and took a beating, to protect the vicar and visitors until guards assisted. A lot of people turned their life around on that area the guard worked in. Just to add, the guards are not cops. Cops don't go in there, they would cause a lot of speep. The worst part about prison isn't the fear of being beaten up or sodomy. The worst part is not being able to do anything productive with your time, and not being able to develop your talents, and knowing that years of your life are just being flushed down the drain. One of my parents' friends was in prison for 6 years. He said it's boring as peep for the most part, and not as dangerous as people make it out to be. If you want to be left alone, then you usually are. There was violence when he was in prison, but it was between gangs etc. If you aren't part of that scene, then you don't really have to worry about being picked on, as long as you're not a pedo or whatever. If anything, he said prisoners can actually be some of the nicest and most wholesome people around. You're all in the same boat, all bored and missing your family, so the last thing you want to do is cause mayhem. Some prison guards are dickheads though, who talk down to prisoners just because they can. Most of the time the main thing you have to worry about is being pranked. Nothing real harsh, but people will hide your clothes from you etc. The rape thing also seems to happen to people that don't defend yourself. Seems like in school, if someone bullies you and you defend yourself, then chances are they are not going to keep doing it since it's too much work. Like some dude in jail won't want to sexually assault people are preying on the weak and don't want someone who is going to fight them all the time. My parents' friend was in a UK based prison, so maybe it's just different over here, as he said that he never heard of anyone being raped whilst he was serving time. He knew that consensual sex happened, especially among the openly gay, but no rape as far as he knew. To add to the weak thing, again, he said that most people were just left alone. You had the odd dickhead who would try and bully people, i.e., my parents' friend was once told that he was sitting in some own spot at a table, so he just got up and moved without a fuss. Maybe that's just something that the hardcore prisoners do to try and find who's also hardcore, etc. as nothing happened to my friend after that. If there were bullies in prison, they were always part of those hardcore prison groups, so were too busy not getting punked on to cause too much speep with people who just wanted to serve their time and get out. He can remember there being some unspoken rules in prison. It wasn't as racially segregated as US prisons, but it wasn't advisable to socialize with Muslims when he was in. He served time not long after 9/11 though, so there was a lot of animosity towards anyone brown regardless of religion, even in UK prisons. I've been to prison in Missouri. It wasn't nowhere as scary as PPL make it out to be. Some fights, not many, no one messed with me, never did I feel threatened or pressured. And no, they don't cut up our hot dogs. I've been asked that so many times, lol. To be honest, that question has never crossed my mind. People who I have talked to who have been in jail have told me most of the time you get treated the way you treat others, plus now they have older prisoners whose job it is to look out for new guys. Not as bad as people think. It's boring. We do the same thing every day. But at least we got outdoors time. My uncle told me a funny story. He got in jail for some minor stuff. He was very young and naive. Anyway, when he got in, the guards asked him a few questions. They had to fill up a form before assigning him to a cell. One of the questions was, do you have any problems with gangs or organized crime? He intended it as, are you involved with gangs or organized crime? So he obviously answered no. Obviously he ended up in a cell full of hardcore gang members. Dementors aren't that bad. Nah, just a scratch. I spent 2 weeks in jail, not prison. It wasn't too bad. Hot dogs and grilled cheese every day. We had a TV in the common area. My cellmate taught me how to roll a cigarette. The worst part was the shower. Just a line of showerheads and no walls. I had to shower with 19 naked guys. I was just caught with some weed, so everyone just left me alone mostly. It was a pretty rural county. No murderers or anything in there. Just DUI and domestic violence and obviously minor weed charges. For the most part everyone got along, and in the 2 weeks I never saw any drama. Just dudes drawing and watching TV. We had chess, checkers and books too. You could request a book from the library and they would get it in a few days. Other than losing my job for not calling out, it wasn't too bad. I love how, if you're scrolling through best comments, many of the experiences are coming from uncles. What's up with that? Everyone has a jail bad uncle apparently. One thing I noticed was the jail I worked in had different pods with about 30 people in them. Each pod had showers and cells, but the inmates made their own shower schedule so 6 people can get in a shower, but they work it to where only one person is in the shower at a time. So I guess it was a plus for me, because nothing went down in the showers, haha.